Welcome to Secure Freedom Radio. This is Frank Gaffney, your host and guide for what I think of as an intelligence briefing on the war for the free world. A man I've had the privilege of serving with and admiring greatly in the course of many years of that war is our first guest. He is the former Undersecretary of Defense for Policy under George W. Bush, Douglas J. Feith. He is the author, among other things, of War and Decision, Inside the Pentagon at the Dawn of the War on Terrorism. He is today a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, where he directs its Center for National Security Strategies. He's also an old friend. Great to have you with us, Doug. Welcome back.
Great to be with you.
I'd like to start, I think, with Iran. Doug, we're going to be talking with several guests about it in the course of the program today. It seems as though there are still more concessions being made by the Obama administration to the Iranian regime, making this deal less and less like what President Obama initially promised, and certainly less and less like what, during your watch, the UN and, of course, the United States as well was thinking was necessary in terms of a deal with Iran that would prevent it from getting a bomb and be in our interests. Talk a little bit about the deal as it's shaping up as you see it.
Well, I think the important thing to recognize about the deal was that President Obama began his negotiations with Iran by asserting that an Iranian nuclear weapon was unacceptable to the United States. And he said that it was so unacceptable that all options were on the table, which meant that he was implying that he would be willing to use military force to stop the Iranians from getting a nuclear weapon. It's pretty clear from the negotiations now that he has changed his mind on that he no longer considers an Iranian nuclear weapon unacceptable. And his current position seems to be that we will accept an Iranian nuclear weapon if we can get some kind of deal that pushes the acquisition of that weapon a little bit down the road. And so he basically has collapsed on the single most important thing, which is the purpose of the diplomacy. And right now, the purpose of the diplomacy, unlike earlier, is not to prevent the Iranians from getting a weapon. The purpose of the diplomacy is basically to kick the issue a little bit down the road. And it's really a collapse.
Yeah, a collapse indeed. It is made the more frightening, it seems to me, even beyond what you've said, which really is we're legitimating this nuclear weapon program, not stopping it. I think it's likely when the president makes his pitch for the deal, as he has to this point, even as the collapsing is taking place, that he will continue to insist that this is blocking it. Given what you know about the enrichment capacity, the advanced centrifuges, the plutonium program, the lack of inspections, the failure to come to grips with previous military dimensions of this program, is it in fact going to be a fraud if he nonetheless claims that this is preventing the Iranian acquisition of a bomb?
It is not preventing it. And if he does claim that, it's not truthful. And I'm really amazed that the administration has collapsed on so many issues as completely as it has. The essence of this deal is it's going to allow the Iranians to get out from under economic sanctions without giving up on their nuclear weapons, without changing any of their behavior, support for terrorism, calls for the destruction of the United States, calls for the destruction of Israel, support for Hezbollah, support for Hamas. And so what you really have is the Iranians are getting a complete get-out-of-jail-free card, and they're not even being asked to pay anything significant for it. I mean, you would think they should be willing to pay something significant for the lifting of the sanctions, which represents the potential of tens of billions of dollars for them, and they need the money. But what's fascinating is the Iranians obviously have the number of Secretary of State Kerry and President Obama, and they've acted in open defiance and really astonishing contempt for both our Secretary of State and our President, and yet the Obama administration is intent on making a deal with them anyway.
Yeah, it goes it goes beyond whether they should feel that they need to make any kinds of concessions. It's not clear to me they're even being asked to. Doug Feith is our guest now with the Hudson Institute, where he is a senior fellow and director of their Center for National Security Strategies, formerly the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. Doug, let me switch gears to one of Iran's neighbors, a country that you have worked a lot with over many years, both in government and out, the nation of Turkey. It has recently had an election that one of our guests coming up, Ilan Berman, has called an earthquake. Talk about what has happened in Turkey and where you think it's likely to go from here.
The election in Turkey was the most significant event in politics there for a dozen years or so, since the AK party of now President Erdogan came into power in 2002. Erdogan was looking to get a substantial majority in the parliament so that he could revise the constitution and create major new powers for himself in the role of president. And he failed. And this is the first electoral defeat that his party has suffered since 2002, and it's a major repudiation of him. He has built himself up in a very anti-democratic, authoritarian fashion, and has been changing Turkey's basic outlook on the world from the traditional Republic of Turkey view that it wanted to be a liberal Western democracy to the new view of Erdogan that it should be an Islamist country focusing on the Muslim world and seeking leadership within the Muslim world. It's a major reorientation of the country. And now he suffered a major setback.
With profound implications, among other things, for NATO, right?
Well, and he's gone out of his way to break with the United States and with NATO on a number of issues. He's bought Chinese military equipment. He sided with the Iranians on UN matters, where the United States was trying to get pressure on Iran at the UN, and the Turks were on Iran's side. He's taken a strong position against Israel and reversed years of building a strong relationship between Israel and Turkey that his predecessors had worked on. He's reversed that and made Turkey one of the most anti-Israel countries in the world.
Yeah, very problematic on a whole host of fronts, Doug Feith. So quickly, where do you think things are likely to go from here? Will we see a sort of reorientation away from these kinds of very problematic policies towards a more traditional role for Turkey and domestically as well?
That's hard to say. I mean, right now, Turkey is in political turmoil. They still have negotiations underway on what kind of coalition is going to come in to the parliament. If nobody can form a government, there may be new elections soon. So I think it's a little early to say what's going to happen. What we can say is that the rather steady progress that Erdogan made in transforming the country has now been disrupted. And that's the most we could say at the moment. I think it's a very positive development that it has been disrupted, but it's not absolutely clear that it's going to be it's going to be a change of course.
We will be following it closely, as I know will you, at the Hudson Institute. Douglas J. Feith, one of its senior fellows and director of the Center for National Security Strategies. Doug, thank you for your past service to our country in government, as well as that you've rendered, among other places, to the Center for Security Policy. We're deeply appreciative. Keep it up, and we'll talk with you again very soon. Next up, Dr. Matthew Kronig joins us. We'll talk with him about whether this is the time to strike Iran and whether we can. Straight ahead.